Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Amy.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our monthly HBK Manufacturing Solutions webinar. My name is Amy Reinald. I am a Senior Manager and Regional Director for our HBK Manufacturing Solutions group. This month, we have some very special guests with us. Chris Herbrook, Michael O'Malley, and Anthony Zimbardi from Arthur J. Gallagher Company. Gallagher Benefits is a company, and they will provide an introduction to themselves as well, but is a company that specializes in employee benefits. And as we look at one of the major issues that manufacturers have been facing and continuing to face, it's attracting and retaining talent. So over the past several months, and really going back into last year as well, a number of our webinars have been focused on that employee retention and attraction aspect. So we wanted to bring in the team from Gallagher today to talk to us about a different strategy, looking at your employee benefit packages, making sure that they fit with your philosophy, with your strategy to attract and retain talent, especially as for many of you, we're getting into that open enrollment season or season where we're looking at our benefit packages and considering what we may offer to employees for next year. So we're really excited to have these guys with us today. Looking forward to some great information and ways that hopefully can help you, as you're planning for how to attract and retain talent within the coming year. So with that being said, I would like to turn it over to Chris, Michael, and Anthony.
Amy, good morning, and thank you. Thank you to all the participants. Really appreciate it. As Amy said, a constant question that we've been getting in all industries, but specifically manufacturing, is about the attracting and retaining employee talent. And this has been an issue going on 2 years now. And what we're going to talk about today are tools that you can utilize, benefit tools that you can utilize to help with attracting and retaining talent. There is no silver bullet, as you all know. However, what we're going to provide is some concrete data to help you determine where you stack up. Many times an employer thinks they don't have good benefits or they have the best benefits, and they really just don't have the objective data to determine what the actual case is. So we're going to provide some of that objective data to let you know where you stack up with regards to the market. We're also going to share with you trends in the market that we're seeing with the different carriers and different trends that employers are implementing to enhance their benefit packages. And then what we're also going to do is give you some tools at the end that you can use analytical tools you can use to evaluate your workforce. These tools are Gallagher tools, but I'm sure you have access to similar tools. But again, our approach is going to be very analytical, and we certainly want to answer any questions you might have along the way. So if you would like to ask a question, feel free to put it in the inbox. As Amy said, my name is Chris Herbrook. I'm Area Executive Vice President of Arthur J. Gallagher in Ohio. And I have with me Michael O'Malley and Anthony Zimbardi. All of us specialize in employers in the 50 to 2,000 employee space, and with a concentration in manufacturing. So we do appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So the first thing we want...
Poll question. Sorry, Chris. This is our first poll question. If you are looking for CPE credit today, make sure that you complete these questions. There will be a few scattered throughout the presentation.
Thank you, Amy. All right, so just some brief background on Gallagher. Gallagher is the third largest insurance consulting firm in the world, about 45,000 associates. However, we are part of the Ohio and Michigan group, and we are very proud of that. Our service model and human resources depth in Ohio, and so we have offices in Akron, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, and Solon, with approximately 1,400 clients. Whereas today we're going to be focusing on benefits and how you can utilize your benefits to attract and retain talent. The end of the commercial on Gallagher is we can help you where you are today. So whether that's financial well-being, career well-being, HR services, property, we can help in all those areas. And again, that's how we approach it. We don't approach it as in a silo. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of the benchmarking. Again, as we said, we want to know if you've benchmarked your plans in the past 3 years. Just a little background on Gallagher's benchmarking survey. We've been conducting this survey in one form or another for the past 23 years. The Gallagher benchmarking survey is approximately 4,000 participants. It is the largest employee benefit and HR benchmarking survey in the United States. The nice thing about our survey is we're not just comparing East and West Coast, Fortune 500 companies. We have a good representation of the entire country, a national, state based on size. So anywhere 50 plus employees, industry. So as you would expect, we will be focusing on the manufacturing today. And then we can also break it out by for-profit and nonprofit. And today, obviously, we will be focusing on for-profit manufacturing. One of the outputs of our national benchmarking survey is we produce a workforce trends report series throughout the year. So some of the output from these surveys are 6 reports focusing on organizational well-being, emotional well-being, financial well-being, career, and best in class. The other thing that we utilize this data for is we use it with our clients and prospective clients all the time. So you are going to see some general information today about Ohio and manufacturing. But we also use this information to do custom reporting, again, for prospective clients and clients to see where you stack up. Because I think it's very important to note here, and before we jump into the actual benchmarking, that not all employers have the same objective with regards to benefits. And that's okay. Some employers offer benefits with the intention and culture of being best in class. They want the absolute best. Others, their goal is simply to be adequate and be at benchmark. And still others are simply doing it because they have to. So we recognize that there are many different opinions on this. And again, this data will show you where you stack up. So now I'm going to take a break here after giving you one more. We'll dabble in another question in a minute, but I'm going to turn this over to Anthony Zimbardi, and he is going to take you to the medical benchmarking, and we'll go from there. Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. And good morning, everybody. My name is Anthony Zimbardi, again with Gallagher. So we thought this would be a good idea to go through kind of this exercise of walking through metrics of the medical plan. Roughly 70% of Ohio companies that offer health insurance renew on January 1st of 2024. So, we figure a lot of folks have this top of mind. And so we thought, we could at least give you some metrics to compare. If you know some of your plan designs off the top of your head, this might just be a good comparison. And then, if there's maybe a need to engage further and get a little more granular on the benchmarking and the metrics, we certainly get scheduled some time after this. So this is going to walk through, again, the medical. You're going to see these bar charts here on the next few slides. We're going to cover the national numbers, Ohio, and then manufacturing. We can get a little deeper on this as far as, if your size, under 100 employees, 100 to 500 employees, and then 500 and above. So those numbers will still slightly be similar, but we can, again, tailor that to the size of your organization. And so this first slide here is on the PPO deductible. A PPO plan, if I'm sure most of you know, is that copay plan. A lot of folks like to call it a buy-up plan, a little bit more of a richer benefit, tend to be more expensive, again, lower deductible. But looking at that employee rate or a single rate, you're looking at anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 a year. Family, which typically is double that, which is around $3,000 a year. And then the PPO out-of-pocket max, this is that number that you can hit that you're most liable for. It's very difficult to hit the out-of-pocket max. You have to have a pretty rough year, maybe a major surgery or very high-cost prescription drugs. Co-insurance has a factor on this as well, but the numbers, at least in the market, are about $4,000 out-of-pocket max for single, and then roughly $8,000 to $9,000 for family. Moving along to the second health plan option that we see the most is the high deductible health plan. A lot of times you'll hear these be called HSAs or health savings accounts. Tend to be a higher deductible than the PPO, a little bit of a lesser benefit. These typically don't have copays. So when you go to that doctor visit or go to the ER, you're going to typically pay out of pocket up to your deductible. The range we're seeing now is anywhere from $2,800 to $3,000 for a single, and then $5,600 to $6,000 for a family. And then moving to the out of pocket, $4,000 to $4,500 for single, and then $8,000 to $8,325 for family. HSAs, it's a big conversation. I'm sure most of you know HSAs are becoming more popular. We typically recommend having one. If you have one plan, one PPO plan, we always recommend putting an HSA in, mainly because you have a diverse workforce. Some people might be in different stages of life. A younger male might be a little bit more less risk than an older male that maybe smokes and has a lot of health problems. Giving these folks options I think is a big part of the conversation, and then letting them decide what's best for them. And part of what we do is, Gallagher is help with the education piece to make sure, hey, does this make sense for you or not? Let's talk about the options and again, go from there. The other thought too is that in manufacturing, not always the highest of income earners. If you have a lot of blue collar folks who don't, make an hourly pay, having a lower cost, high deductible plan option is nice too. Folks want that money back in their pocket, and try to use this plan more for sometimes just a catastrophic plan, just to have almost like a ceiling on their risk or what they're liable for. So definitely a conversation worth having if you don't have an HSA in place.
One last comment on the high deductible health plans. If you have a qualified high deductible health plan right now with an HSA, 1/1/24, if you have an embedded deductible, which is what most plans are, the IRS says you need to move that deductible to $3,200, $6,400. So $3,200 for single and $6,400 for family. So if you're currently below $3,200, if you have not already done so, you will need to move that deductible per the IRS to $3,200 1/1/24. Sorry for interrupting, Anthony.
No, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the plug. A little too far there. So looking ahead, to the RX or pharmacy copays. These are pretty standard, for your generic, typically lower cost, looking at about $10 a month, or sorry, $10 per script, excuse me. For preferred, about $35 per copay. Again, these are with the PPO plan. You won't see these with HSA. You'll be paying for those out of pocket. Non-preferred drugs are looking at about $60 per script, and then the specialty, which is tends to be higher, right around that $100 to $200 range. And the trend we're seeing now with specialty is just, if anyone knows, or if you've watched Jeopardy at night, you see all these commercial drugs, the Humiras, the Ozempics. These drugs are just insanely expensive. I mean, we're talking a couple $1,000s a month, if not more. We've seen some that are north of $10,000 a month. So what's happening in the market is, when you look at the total spend of the healthcare, the health insurance for medical, roughly 25 to 30% of that is coming from the pharmacy end. In the next 5 years, they're projecting that to be upwards of 40%. So these drugs are just, there's a lot of money in prescription drugs. There's a lot of hands in prescription drugs, and the costs are just going through the roof. And so that's another conversation that we have quite a bit, is just how to control those pharmacy costs. And so again, if there's interest there, we can certainly talk about it. But just that trend is going up, and will continue to go up for years to come. Office visits. So you're looking at, your primary care visits, your specialty, visits like a dermatologist or, anything. So for the primary cares, copay, again, with the PPO plan, roughly $25 on average. For a specialist, $45 to $50. These numbers don't tend to change as much. These have been fairly similar over the years. Looking at the emergency room, you're looking at $200 to $250 for ER. Urgent care, $50 to $75. And so a big trend we're seeing here, especially with emergency room and urgent care, is companies are trying to steer folks away from the ER. If you literally step foot in an ER, you're looking at potentially a $1,200 to $1,400 bill out of the gate. That's a proven number. That's the average in Ohio. Going to the ER can be very expensive. And so what we're trying to do, and what when you're strategic with this approach, is they're trying to make that ER copay, they're trying to raise it. So we're seeing copays go up north of $350 per copay, and they're lowering the urgent care copays to, again, create that steerage to get people to go to the urgent care and not the ER. And can't tell you how many times we've had situations where someone goes to the ER for an earache or a cut on their finger, something that does not need ER service. That's why these urgent cares are popping up all over the place. There's a massive amount of people who go to the ER that don't need to go. And so, again, going back to my Gallagher plug, if there's help, you're needing help with communication to your employees to say, hey, we need to be better consumers with our health spend, that's something we can help too, is just create that communication campaign to say, hey, let's all be smarter. If we all make better decisions, we all win. We can have lower premiums, mitigate their costs each, year over year. So again, just another big conversation that we get into often. Going into the monthly premiums for the copay or PPO plan, you're looking at, roughly for an employee, $662 to $725. When you annualize that number, that's between $8,000 and $9,000 a year. It's a big number. Even bigger is if you go into the family side, you're looking at $1,900 to $2,100. Annualize that, you're looking at $23,000 to $25,000 a year. So that really opens people's eyes, I think. When you always look at things monthly and you look at what your employer's covering. When you look at it collectively, the average cost per employee as a single, $8,000 to $9,000 is a lot of money. And we'll go into this next slide and kind of breaks it down into how that's broken up, who's cost sharing. On the average, the employee contribution, so call it of that $8,000 or $9,000, the employee is typically responsible for about 20% to 25% as a single. With a family plan, you're responsible for roughly 25 to 30%. So what that means is that the employers are covering, the minimum is 50%. The average here is, call it 70%. And so this can really open up a conversation, with compensation reporting. And if anyone here is doing this, when you look at a typical employee, and let's just say they're making $40,000 a year, they see that 40,000 and don't realize, well, hey, my company's actually paying, another 7 or 8,000 for my health insurance. And so there's ways you can actually put these into reports to take, essentially credit for this. You want your employees to know that, hey, we're actually paying for a lot more than just your salary. So that's, again, another conversation that could be happening down the road. Put that into dollars on the PPO. Employee only 145 to 166, and then family 515 to 632. So we'll go in here next on that, I believe the HSA side. I'm not able to go to the next slide. Okay. So on the high deductible plan, again, lesser benefit plan, a little bit of a cheaper premium each month. You're looking at anywhere from 580 to 616. Annualize that, roughly 7,000 a year, and then the family plan 1,700 to 1,800-ish. Annualize that, 20 to 21,000 a year. So the high deductible plan, again, another option to have cheaper premiums each month. With the higher deductible, it's just a matter of whether you want to pay less and take on more risk or the opposite. So, and then we have a poll question here. So if everyone can participate, I'll give you 30 seconds or so. Okay. Am I good to move on here?
Yes.
Good to go.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move on. So going back to the HSA contribution strategy, very similar to the PPO as far as percentage-wise, just a little bit lower. Employees are typically responsible for about 20% of the cost for the single rate, roughly 22, 25% for the family. And how that translates into dollars is you'll see this is much lower than the PPO, anywhere from 111 to 125, and then for the family, 413 to 455. So I think the moral of the story there is there's options, depending on your income, your level of risk, your health. At the end of the day, I think it just comes down to finding what's best for you and having those options available to your employees. And then I will go ahead and kick this over to Michael.
Well, I'll take it, Anthony.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right, sir. All right, so next we just want to talk about big picture trends that we're seeing in the marketplace. Like this may or may not apply to you, but these are consistent questions we're getting locally and nationally. There has been a resurgence and or additional emphasis lately put on mental health. It's been anxiety has been increasing at dramatic rates, especially since the pandemic. We're getting much more questioned or renewed interest in employee assistance programs. The insurance carriers are coming out with new products, but this is a huge issue. This has been a huge issue with many employers. Another area that we've been seeing is financial wellness. So not just a focus on retirement plans, but coaching, retirement readiness, debt, et cetera, et cetera. And so this has been a very hot topic. The other is leave and flexibility. So again, largely because of a post-COVID environment, we're seeing a lot more flexible PTO, a lot more flexible hybrid work environments. And also one other thing affecting PTO is mandatory state leaves are on the rise. So many states are adding mandatory state disability and leave policies. And then the last area is caregiving. We find ourselves kind of in the sandwich generation, taking care of kids and older parents. And this has become, with the baby boomers aging, this is becoming a major topic that employers are dealing with.
Chris, did we lose you on audio?
There. Am I back? Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, sorry about that. Having technical difficulties. Thank you. So what we're seeing with regards to current landscape, the broad landscape is specific to benefits and specific to health insurance, is financial challenges. The most notable is continued pressure on providers and a transferring of costs from the public sector to the private sector. This has been going on for a long time, but it is continues to increase. The other area that Anthony noted that is a significant issue and consideration is new drugs and specialty drugs. Most notably, you may have seen on the news and or the nighttime TV about drugs like Ozempic and Jardiance. These are called GLP-1s, and they are very expensive, and they are becoming very popular because off-label use for these drugs, they're really diabetes drugs, but an off-label use is weight loss. So this is becoming an issue. And we see a lot of this in the manufacturing sector specifically due to the nature of the workforce. Market dynamics, we just continue to see retention and attraction and issues, as I said, burnout and mental health challenges. So that continues. And then legislation, I also already mentioned, but there's new transparency laws that's making it more difficult for employers, and then new PTO and mandatory leave policies. Okay, so then next, this page is about culture being the new currency. These are the taglines for the past 4 years. I don't know who they are that creates them, but I think they're pretty accurate. 2020 was the year of the unprecedented. 21 was the new normal. 22 was the great resignation. And 23 is the year of the employee. And this is, again, what we're seeing with regards to the need to have strong culture and to attract and retain associates. So that one of the sections of our benchmarking survey has to do with operational priorities. And so what we have here is we have those operational priorities broken out nationally by Ohio and the manufacturing sector. And you'll see the number one operational priority, which is probably not a surprise to anyone, is growing revenue or sales. However, the second is retaining talent. And so, and then a close third is decrease overall operating costs. And number 4 is attracting talent. So retaining and attracting are in the top 4. And this is what we're hearing again, within the manufacturing sector. So this next survey question was what employers were doing to attract and retain talent. And again, as you might expect, number one by far is base salary. So that's everyone needs to get paid. But surprisingly, you'll see variable compensation or bonus programs is second. So additional compensation bonus programs, executive benefits, key employee benefits, they have been around for decades, but there has been a great deal of emphasis placed on this in the past 2 years. As you might expect, Gallagher does specialize in this as well, but variable compensation and bonus programs has been a very big tool in the toolbox for retention and attraction. But a close third is medical benefits. And then you'll see very, very close after that is voluntary benefits, leave policies, and well-being. So what we have continued to see over the past 10 or 12 years is choice is the trend. One size doesn't fit all. Most employers have a divergent workforce. You have young, you have old, you have healthy and unhealthy. And so one size doesn't fit all. And we have seen a big increase in voluntary offerings. They are visible to the employees, but not a lot of additional cost to the employers. This is what I was just saying, voluntary benefits. 63% of employers manufacturing employers are offering voluntary benefits to round out their benefit package. 45% is to fill in gaps. And 31% are doing it to attract and retain employees, and 40% say they're doing it for financial protection of the employees. So these products have changed dramatically over the past 15 years. There used to be very aggressive sales tactics associated with them. There used to be only a couple, 2 or 3 players that were offering these products. That has changed dramatically. There are many carriers offering these products now. They've become much more competitively priced. Consultants have become much more strategic about discussing them, and they fill in gaps where you didn't need to fill in gaps in the past. So, if you had a $250 deductible, there wasn't much need for an accident policy. But if you have a $3,000 deductible, an accident policy might start to make a lot of sense. So we continue to get many, many questions in this area. Just to give you an idea, I won't take you through every box in here, but to give you an idea about different PTO strategies, just to focus on manufacturing, 41% still use separate vacation, sick, and personal days. 58% are using a combined bank of days, which is very similar to what we're seeing in the market at large and in Ohio. 69% of employers in the manufacturing sector are not allowing carryover of unused sick leave. 24% are do, but with limited amounts, and 6% unlimited. I skipped the unlimited PTO. You hear a lot about this in the news. You don't see a lot of employers putting this in place, especially in the manufacturing sector. And just very quickly, in terms of PTO and PTO dates per year, you'll see for the manufacturing that we break it out in our questions by exempt and non-exempt, and we break it out by at hire 5 years, 10 years, 15, in 15 years and beyond. So for non-exempt at hire, it's 10 days. Non-exempt, exempt at hire, it's 12 days. So you will receive this data, following the presentation, so you can look at it more closely. Our next question: what is your top priority? Attracting and retaining talent, growing revenue or sales, training and developing your people, or maintaining or decreasing overall expected costs? All right, moving on. I wanted to spend just a couple minutes, but these are specific things that we're seeing in the marketplace. And if you've done any marketing of your plans, these are things that you may have heard of. Probably you've heard at least of one or two of them. Does not mean these are right for you, but they are things in the market that are happening, and that they're a buzzword. 3 market disruptors that are out there. One is Sidecar Health. In a nutshell, the premise of Sidecar Health, this is a new company. It's less than 2 years old. And it's a medical plan offering, and it's based on the premise that the cash price is always better at the doctor and facility than what the insurance carriers negotiate. It's a really new concept, and it can be the right fit for some groups in all sectors, but definitely in the manufacturing sector. Surest and Simple Pay. One is a Aetna product, one is a United Healthcare product, but they're the same concept. And the idea behind them is that it eliminates all deductibles and coinsurance. Everything is based on copays, and those copays vary depending on where you go for your care. The idea behind these products is to promote high value, lower cost options. So if you go to one doctor, for example, copay might be $25. You go to a more expensive, more expensive physician without as good outcomes, that office visit might be as much as $125. This is catching on quite rapidly as well. Again, one size doesn't fit all, but this is what we're hearing about. The next area is captives. You hear a lot about captives. Pareto is the nation's largest captive for stop-loss coverage. Brownstone is a local provider of captives for stop-loss coverage. So this would apply in the event that you have a self-funded plan. If you don't have a self-funded plan, you need a self-funded plan before you have a captive. But there's a lot of talk about that in the marketplace. And then 2 very different options are the ICHRA. The ICHRA is where you you do cancel your group plan, and you offer your employees a technology platform to go out to the market and buy individual coverage, and the employer subsidizes that coverage through a health reimbursement arrangement. And then Imagine 360 is an example of what we call reference-based pricing. So again, these are the type of things that we talk about. Doesn't mean this is the right fit, but you should make sure that you are covering all of these as you investigate your options. And then before I turn it over to my partner, Michael O'Malley, these are the top according to our survey, these are the top strategic priorities for 2023 in the manufacturing sector. So I will let you just look at those. Okay, well, thank you very much. I am going to now turn it over to Michael to discuss some of the tools that you can use to evaluate your workforce. And again, these are Gallagher tools, but I'm sure you have access to similar tools. Michael, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's still awake and enjoying the presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy of starting to attract and retain talent. It, of course, starts from the top and works its way down, but the multi-step organizational well-being approach, starting with understanding the market, which we talked a lot about with benchmarking and understanding what other options are out there, what are the products, the healthcare industry and the medical. There's a lot of new products out there every single year, so being aware of what's out there, it might not be the fit for you, but it's good to understand what is out there as well. And then, of course, with regulatory and the environment and the compliance, understanding the laws and the regulations that are out there is really important to understand as well. And then the next one, knowing your workforce. Gallagher has a few tools to help you understand your workforce, but understanding the people that come to work every day, where they go home to, because where they live definitely affects their health outcomes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But also the population as a whole, different age groups. We're going to see, the millennials. You have an older population really plays into effect on how you want to help communicate and the types of plans that you'll be offering. And then going into that, understanding your employee voice. So are you doing engagement surveys? Are you having focus groups? If you have a smaller company, you might have a better sense of what everyone is thinking. But if you're currently just offering one plan, it's not always going to fit all. Whereas if you ran a survey and you find out people might be wanting an HSA plan, they want to start saving money into investing into their future healthcare costs. There's all great ways to understand what your population is looking for and trying to fit their needs. Because if you're also looking to bring in people like you currently have, they generally will want similar offerings. And then a last thing here, aligning your strategic priorities. Like I said, it starts from the top and it works its way down. You need buy-in from leadership. Gallagher has a tool, Better Works Assessment, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but understanding what are the priorities and what's really urgent. An HR leader might have a different priority than the CFO, so how are we going to line those up and find out what's urgent and what do we need to tackle first? And then using that to kind of develop a 3-year plan or a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year plan down the road to make sure that when the times come to implement something that everyone's on the same page and we're ready to go. I'm going to jump slides here, hopefully it works. And it's not working for me right now. Someone else able to go to the next slide?
You should see the Gallagher. Okay, perfect.
There we go. We got it. Now we're back on the same page. So some of the tools that I mentioned in our previous slide, the People Insights Report, which I'll probably touch on more so coming up, but it highlights the career stages, compensation, and social determinants of health. The workforce evaluation is a little bit deeper dive than the People Insights Report. It'll evaluate your current population, but then also take into consideration your current benefits, your HR policies, anything from a retirement plan to just the all-encompassing total rewards package. And then the Gallagher Better Works Assessment, kind of just another term for, business priority and leadership alignment survey. Can be taken by leadership team, anyone from a plant director, whoever you want involved to help make decisions on the benefits. And then Anthony touched on the benchmarking report. This is a great tool. obviously from a national, state, industry, and group size perspective, to knowing what other people are doing in the market. People, I would say, are more surprised when they look at the premiums or their employer contributions, and like employees will complain that they're paying way too much. But if you're looking at the benchmark, they'll be like, it's right in line. It's right in line with the median and what's going on in the country and the state. So I will, as I promised, talk about the People Insights report. And this report's broken down into 3 segments here, and it's used with a simple census of, date of birth, hire date, zip code, salary, and so the social determinants of health. Why should you care about this? A lot of people may not know what the social determinants of health is, but essentially it's, your economic and social conditions are affecting your health outcomes. You'll see here on the right, 80% of health outcomes are influenced by your social determinants of health. And another thing is 3 times more visits to emergency departments for low wage versus high wage earners. This is important because, ER is very expensive. And if you're a low wage earner, it's not going to be the best option if you can go to urgent care, or if there's a campaign to promote going to your primary care doctor. You'll see in the bottom right, there's a 50% less utilization of preventative care for low wage earners. It's important to go to your primary care doctor. I'm sure we can all do a better job of it ourselves, but making sure that we're promoting that and understanding the benefits of going to your primary care doctor. And then on the bottom left of that chart there, you'll see there's 4 times more avoidable admissions for low wage earners. So your zip code really does have an important, it's very important to your health status than genetics than you would think. It is all crucial to understanding. And then also looking into career stages, this report breaks it down into, breaking it down versus the industry benchmark. So this sample here is the plastics product manufacturing. We can do it just based off your SIC code and let you know where you're at. But in terms of tenure, career distribution, and then the prevalence of, median age, female prevalence, and then 65 and older. This is a great tool to know where your current population is at. If you're seeing that it's trending more to the pre-retirement age, you might say it's time for a Medicare session and helping those people getting ready to retire know what life's like after they leave the company and they're retired, and what do they do for Medicare. When you see there's more of an exploration career stage, you might want to work on your communications and also your plan design to help fit their needs. And then compensation. This is, and again, none of this is going to be new information to yourself, but this puts it in a nice way to, read it and understand really where you're currently at. It breaks it down into career stage and the average wage in each career stage. And then also on the right side in the top right here, breaking it down into male and female. It can be eye-opening for a lot of people if they don't take a close look at this previously. And then if you look on the bottom right, this breaks it out into the local rent average as percentage of wages. We're using the 30% rule, meaning that 30% of your gross income should be spent on housing costs. This group doesn't have anybody in that area, but if you were to see someone at rent disadvantage, you might consider, first, are they living in an area that has a higher cost for a 1-bedroom apartment in their county, or you might look at their wage. So it's just more things to start thinking about your population and, as the market continues to evolve. The next tool, workforce evaluation, I touched on it a little bit earlier. I don't want to talk too much about it. We know we got short on time here. But again, it's diving in a little bit more than that people insights, and we're evaluating everything that's being offered and tracking those human capital KPIs and looking at the total value prop of the employer. The Better Works assessment, again, it's that alignment tool used by the decision makers, those key stakeholders and the benefits. So gathering that data and finding out what's really urgent, what's a priority, and then off of that, creating a plan moving forward. And then the benchmarking survey, we talked about this. Please reach out if you'd like us to offer these, any of these tools. I'm more than happy to help out or kind of just discuss any more of these and, see how we can help. But obviously benchmarking and people insights seem to kind of be a good starting point to understand, what's in the market and then also understanding your people. And with that, if anyone needs a CPE credit, please respond yes or no. And then we'll do a little Q&A. I'm sure everyone has a lot of questions at the end of this.
So we haven't had any questions come through from our attendees quite yet. However, much of your presentation was focused on Ohio and, of course, manufacturers, but I know you guys do some work with those outside the state as well. So in case we have any attendees on from outside the state, can you give a little bit of detail on what you may be able to do to help those employers as well?
Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say yes, absolutely. Starting with our benchmarking report, we have data from almost, I'm pretty sure, all 50 states almost, maybe excluding Alaska. I can't really speak to that, but I can check. But, of course, all of our surrounding states will have data on them. And if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, please reach out.
Yeah, as Michael said, we have benchmarking data, and included in here, you'll see the manufacturing and the national. So that's going to apply to everybody. So we can do it any sector of the country. In addition, we have a team that does absence and leave management throughout the country because, again, those laws are changing very quickly. So we can help in any state, and we are in every state in the nation.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. With that being said, Chris, Michael, and Anthony's information is on this screen. In addition, if you have any questions about today's presentation or how best to reach the team at Gallagher, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Also, Jim DeCenzo, our National Director of Manufacturing Solutions, is happy to field questions as well. Chris, Michael, Anthony, we appreciate your time today, all of the great information. I think that benchmarking information is probably information that got many of our attendees' attention as they look to compare themselves to other employers and ensure they have the right strategy for attracting and retaining employees. So with that being said, I thank everyone for attending today's presentation, and thanks again to the Gallagher team for participating today. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.